Hey, yo, what's good, everybody? It's your man, Dame DNYDC, host of the Two Mics Up podcast. We here live tonight. Y'all hope y'all is feeling all right because I am. I'm excited. Friday Eve, ready to kick off the weekend. But before we even jump into that, I'm really excited about tonight's conversation. Been kind of going back and forth with this one. Finally got this one on the schedule. And I hope that you all, just like I am, will enjoy uh you know, that's right there. Fireworks, everything, because that's what we talking about fire tonight. We really staying in the pocket. We're gonna talk about education. We talking about higher learning. Shout out to my brothers, the McCray Kings. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight, man. Hope you guys are doing well. Bless up to both of you, man. Love you guys, man. Real close friends of the show. If y'all haven't checked them out, man, great podcast. These gentlemen are doing, man. These guys are really great. Um, so like I was saying, education. It's really tough now with everything that we've had going on. I mean, we're talking about a pandemic that continues to rage on. Schools are just open back up. No matter which news outlet or media you may listen to, one day the numbers are up, one day the numbers are down. And it's really hard to really navigate this. And especially for those of you who may have young children, middle-aged children, high school children. Like I'm just thankful, and I was just saying this to one of our guests before we came on, and I'm thankful that I currently don't have a child that has to go to school during these current crazy conditions. But I'm not going to keep talking, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and bring our guest educators on tonight. We have two amazing women that are, involved. They're in the game. They're doing their best to put their best foot forward with some of our children here in the states. And without further ado, I'm going to back up, and I'm going to let our guests, and I'm going to start with, uh, man, Tiffany Harris. If Tiffany, you can go ahead and take a moment and go ahead and introduce yourself and give a little background about yourself and your education career.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Tiffany Harris. I am currently living here in Sacramento, California, by
Whoop,
way
whoop.
of Chicago, Illinois. And I have come a long way as a teacher, educator, school advocate for juvenile probation involved youth. Dean of students, and then also assistant principal. So I've kind of run across a few of the different roles in the school district. I'm still in pursuit of many leadership roles, but currently I'm teaching history. That's why you can kind of see my my traditional flag from the American Revolutionary War. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade history for International Baccalaureate World School. It's a charter school serving grades pre-K all the way through 8th grade.
Wow, that's awesome, and I'm glad you brought up that flag in history because we're going to dive into that a little bit later on.
Yes, yes. I thought I'd sit right by
Hey, I love it. I love it. See, great minds, great minds. Our next amazing guest, is Miss Teyuna Darris. Teyuna, please go ahead and take a moment to introduce yourself to our audience and give a little background history about yourself.
All right, so my name's Teyuna Darris, and I'm so grateful to be here. I just entered my third year as a public school teacher, and I actually got my start in St. Louis, Missouri, where I also taught elementary school. Um, we had a had a lovely 2 years together until our school closed, and so I kind of had to make a decision like, am I going to stay here and maybe go to another school in the district or just try something different? And I said, well, let's try it out in Maryland. And so I'm here in Maryland. I've been here for 2 months.
Okay.
And it's just been such an interesting. I started off as a sub in Missouri, and I
Mm.
subbed for about 4 years. So it's been just quite a interesting change, just in the landscape and how policy is applied in the different regions, just all of that. And so uh, yeah, I'm here and I'm in my third year. I teach fourth grade, and they are probably the most energetic bunch of children I have ever known. um, but they're wonderful, and I teach I teach English language arts and social studies. So yes, team social studies, and yeah, so I'm just at the beginning of the career, and just along for the ride.
Well, this is what I love. So we have two individuals, one at the beginning of a career, and we have one that seems a little more vetted and has been a little more in the game. And I'm happy to be able to have that because sometimes it's good to get two different perspectives, and that was the other reason why we wanted to uh, have this conversation. And you both touched on some topics that we're going to intertwine in tonight's conversation because I think they're really important. But what I wanted to start off with was, and I'll start with you, Tayana. Being a teacher and being new, right? So first of all, what was that aha moment that made you say, you know what, I want to be a teacher, or you made you inspired to become a teacher? Like, what was that moment?
Um, Honestly, I used to tutor when I was a high school junior and senior, and actually used to tutor at my old elementary school in Ferguson. And basically, I think just seeing when the kids when they get it, when that
Mm,
math concept just they understand it. When writing is just not so difficult for them to do anymore. When they start to
right.
build that confidence, um, that just kind of made me realize like, oh, I'm doing something that's really helping someone.
Mm-hmm.
That's they're gonna take that skill that translates into employment,
Yeah.
that translates into
Yeah.
just interpersonal relationships.
Yeah.
The primary education, I mean, that's it, it's primary,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and those skills, that knowledge, those all that, that's really that was my first aha moment. Teaching is a career that I've been running from.
Why? Why? What? I mean, why? Why? Like, why? Why would? I mean, because it's odd. Like, that's the whole oxymoron to it. Like, you're running from it, but yet this is a passion. And it's something that obviously you really love doing.
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess because of the challenge, because
Mm-hmm.
while this is probably um, this is the most enriching work I've ever done,
Wow.
it's also the most challenging. And I guess I know I had this fear of challenge,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's just something about when you get in there and you're really helping somebody to be a better writer, a better speaker, a better math person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just they gain that independence and they
Right.
gain that confidence. That is inspiring to me. And that's what really, I guess, I won't say I live for that moment, but that really motivates me to get up
man,
5 days a week
man, that's a
and
great.
do
That's
it.
a great reason, though. I mean, without individuals like yourself and Tiffany. And look, if you parents in the woods sitting here watching, like, clap, applaud, throw something in the comments for them, because like I said, every day, 5 days a week. And I know this has to continue on even into the weekend sometimes.
Hmm.
So I know it's a challenge, and I have to ask Tiffany. Same question. What was that aha moment for you? When you got started.
I had to laugh because Miss Darris, I ran as well. So
Mm,
I that just really cracked me up. And I think it is, it's just a reminder to those watching and listening, what are the things you can't stop thinking about? What do
right.
you wake up thinking about? That's what you're meant to do. And I had, I majored in Spanish. Um, I worked for every A and B I got in class. Nothing came to me easy growing up.
Right.
But my mother maintained really high expectations for me because she dropped out of high school when she was 17. And so I watched my mother when I was in seventh grade go back and get her high school GED, her high school, her equivalency. And she showed me firsthand that education, knowledge is power. And so then I saw her going to get her associates. By the time I made it to college, she was also enrolled in college. And then she just finished with her master's. So my mother set an example for me as a scholar of it's never too late. Go do what you have to do and break those cycles, right? Of any kind of trauma in your family, any hopelessness, you have the opportunity to break that pattern by educating yourself. So when I saw her do that, that kind of lit a light bulb in me. And so I went ahead and graduated from college with a degree in Spanish. And everyone would tell me as I was tutoring at the middle school Spanish classes, they would say, you should teach. You're great with kids. And I said, oh, no, I don't like kids. I was raised an only child. That's a no-go. And I said, no, I think I want to travel. So I studied abroad in Spain. I said, I'm going to go do all these great things. And after college, I moved to Arizona. And I said, well, what am I going to do? So I got a job working at T-Mobile in sales. And I hated it. And I said, you know what? It's time for me to be open. And I think, that's another thing for the listeners. How many times we block the great
Hmm.
things, our great journey? We put those blocks in front of us. And so a friend of
Speak
mine
on
said,
it.
hey, do you need a job?
Hmm.
And I said, yeah, I do need a job. She said, well, look, we have some part-time aide positions at the school. And you can come in and just tutor kids after school or just a couple hours a day. And I went in there and I haven't turned back since. It was
Wow.
an incredible experience. I went in thinking I was going to do the teaching. Instead, the kids taught me.
Mm,
It was
wow.
an incredible experience. So, and I just have been thirsty and running. But that's not to say that there aren't hard times that make me question my space. You
Mm,
know, did I choose the right path? Because it does
right.
get hard.
Yeah. And I see Teyana. She's nodding her head in agreement, and it's one of those things. And this is just me, not knowing the profession, but understanding the challenges. And when you say sometimes, did you make the right decision? And I just have to be honest, and I have to ask, you guys are underpaid. And like sometimes is that one of your biggest challenges? Do you wake up just some days and just say, damn it, man, I can't. And does the love outweigh the pay? Or, I mean, I just have to ask, 'cause I know it's challenging, and especially you have some kids, and not all kids are bad, but you just sometimes have that one that gets under your skin, and you're like, man, this is, uh, you know, so I have to ask, and I'll start with you, Tiffany. You know, is that part of the run feeling sometimes?
Ooh wee. I tell my students sometimes, I say, y'all making me work for every penny I'm gonna get on Friday. I tell them sometimes, y'all really making me work today. But it's a great question to bring up. We have to reflect on number one, the average new teacher leaves within 5 years.
Wow.
Are we recruiting star talent? Are we developing and investing in that star talent, right? And what are we doing about the people that leave us? Knowing that maybe they can go and work in a different space, but still positively impact our communities. And
Hmm.
so I just think overall, I had to have an honest conversation with myself. So, because I didn't go into teaching for the money, but I knew that it would be an investment in my community. I knew that my government, my country would invest back into me for making that investment. investment into the children. And so I know we may talk about loan forgiveness and all the different teacher benefits, but here it's, it may vary by state too. I'm in California, which, as you all know, is pricey being on the coast.
Right.
However, our teachers, depending on their district, they have opportunities to get free health care. Some of the best healthcare in the country that's offered by Kaiser or Sutter Health. Also, they'll maybe offer you free health savings accounts where they pay for it and you just receive the benefit. And then also tuition reimbursement for
Wow.
if you want to go on for post-secondary education. I for get a master's in retirement. That's been a blessing because in California, if you teach in the classroom and then decide to go to administration, if you stay in administration for 3 years and then you go back to the classroom, when you retire, you don't retire at the salary of a teacher. You retire at your highest salary that you kept for 3 years.
Okay.
So, school districts do acknowledge that we need more, right? But just trying to see what are the ways in which you can still invest in us, maybe not financially, but to make life a little bit easier for us.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you the same then. For you, Teyuna. I mean, just starting out. Because you're on the other side of the spectrum. Is that still something for you? Like sometimes that you say, is that part of your running, as you mentioned earlier, and doing that 5 days a week? Does that play a part in it at times? Because we really don't want you to go. Tiffany brought up some very good points. Teachers are hard to find, and like Coach just said, you guys are a gift for sure. But I just had to ask that question because I mean, financially though, it sometimes it's a give and take, and I wonder if that's part of your run per se.
Um, I agree with everything Tiffany said. And I personally, I feel like, yeah, I mean, the work that we do, it doesn't stop. Sometimes I just have to pause it. Like I got this big stack of papers that I need to go grade. Um, it doesn't stop. And then with parents and, just, and something too, with the improvements in technology, I've noticed that I guess that kind of separation between school hours and my hours, they sometimes seem a little blended. It means it's like we're more easily accessible.
Okay.
But and it's understandable because we are public servants, but we also have
You have a life
other
too.
hats
Yeah.
that are not. And so it does speak back to that well-paid question. So it is something that I ponder about. But I told myself, I said, Teyuna, when you go into this, you're gonna give it at least 5 years. At
Okay.
least. And so I don't really because I this is something that I just knew at some point I was going to do. I just knew it was coming. And I told myself, I said, why you been subbing so long? And I was subbing as a teacher because the teacher quit. And I did it for 4 years. So, and I'm just like, yeah, you just need to go get your license. And because you keep coming back. And I mean, I really enjoyed it. I really did. And so, and I still do. And I actually enjoy it more because there's more that I can do as a certified teacher. But yeah, that is a question that I ponder. It goes across my mind. but
Well, I
but I
know.
told myself, that 5 years at least before I make any other executive decisions.
Okay.
And if I could, I forgot to add one big piece here. Teacher unions. We have a lot of support with teacher unions, and I know, for example, California has been my first experience with teacher unions. Now, the school I'm in now does not have one, but all California schools have an option to get one. And when I was in the Unified School District as a school administrator, I noticed that a lot of people had a lot of security with their jobs. You would have first and second year teachers coming on and being able to maybe apply to.
Hold on. Okay, so hold on.
Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
We had
Hopefully you
got
can
it.
hear me.
Now we
I'm
can
going
hear
to
you
keep
now.
talking.
Yeah, now you can keep talking. Yeah, because the feedback or
Okay.
whatever it was okay,
Was
but you're better
crazy.
now. Yep, you're better now. Mhm.
Okay. All right, guys. Um, oh,
Okay.
see about
So
now.
we now you're actually now in the matrix. So
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask you if you could just jump back out and jump back in.
Yes.
Um, and we'll pick right back up when you get back on. Okay. All right. So Teyana, I'm going to go ahead then and ask to move forward with the next question. Then,
Okay.
um, really, now that we've covered those aspects,
Mhm.
I really want to kind of jump into our educational system as a whole.
Okay.
And and it's kind of like a two-part question. But the first part, and this could be an opinion or from experience or whatever, as a parent, as a citizen, because I think we all kind of have this notion. And what we talked about here is what areas do you maybe you find or see where the educational system as a whole is failing? And that's the first part of the question.
I think the biggest failure of the American education system is just the overall lack of government funding.
Mm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
because if I don't give you enough money to do your job, you're not going to essentially do your job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you may do aspects of it, but somewhere, and you may actually be able to do, the main pieces of it, but to what degree? If I don't give you the resources, because funding translates into resources, it translates into um, to professional development for faculty. It
Mm-hmm.
translates into, um, you know, curriculum,
Right.
being able to properly fund a special education program in addition to the regular general education program. So I think the biggest failure is government funding. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, education is one of the fundamental needs of a society. It's just as fundamental as military. It's just as fundamental as healthcare. And so when we have to do, you know, fundraisers for our schools, um, but the military never has to. Uh, and I don't think that they should either. I don't think that they should. But I think that, those foundational needs of a society, um, they should be well funded. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest issue. And then when you look at the funding, let's look at how it's funded.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of education is funded through real estate taxes.
Yeah.
And so if I'm the kid in St. Louis who lives in the derelict neighborhood and is low income, well, and the property value is low, well, I can expect that I'm going to be going to a low income, or I'm sorry, a low resourced,
Mm-hmm.
low funded school.
Yeah.
Then let me live here in Clayton, in
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis County, and my house is $400,000 in its value.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm paying more in taxes just from my home value.
Right.
So that translates into a better funded school for my child.
Right.
So then we look at, well, who more likely lives in the lower income school or the low income neighborhood and goes to that low funded school versus who mostly or more likely lives in that higher income neighborhood and attends that high income or high funded school. Well, then that's where we get into the racial disparities,
Right. Right.
and because in our country, we know that typically people who look like us, who
Yeah.
are brown, who are black, who are of color, we
Mm-hmm.
tend to live in those low income homes and therefore low funded schools, attend
Mm-hmm.
those schools, and the opposite is true for those who are white. So I think again, it's that government funding, the lack thereof, and how that funding that we do get is even applied.
I mean, I love it because you really went into the second part of the question, and you answered it eloquently. Because I was looking for is what the impact on the Black and Brown community specifically, and you answered that so eloquently. So, Tiffany, now that you're back, I also want to ask you the same question. Really based on your opinion or what you've experienced throughout your tenure. Uh, what do you feel, or what areas do you feel that our American educational system is really failed or failing? And the second part of the question is, in your what you've seen or experienced as it relates to the Black and Brown community.
I want to say first that it wasn't until I went to a training. I was working for Harris County Juvenile Probation, and the state of Texas came in and gave us a training on cultural diversity. And
Hmm.
right away, when they walk in, they're like, "We're going to do this training." We're thinking, "Here we go." One of those PowerPoints where it's like, "Don't be, don't discriminate against so and so." But guys, they separated us and put us in groups, and
Okay.
everybody had a big piece of paper, and everyone had one institution within the United States, and we were supposed to brainstorm the ways in which those institutions oppress communities of color.
Hmm.
Now, maybe not directly, but indirectly or directly oppress people of color. So I want to, before I answer this, to be fair to my educators and other pioneers in education, leaders, hospitals, the
Hmm.
judicial system, prison systems. We have a lot of different institutions that are pressing it, and it really, I mean, it made me really, it was sobering for me to
Hmm.
sit around and look at the room and see all of these examples. So, but for education, it's very easy for me to harp on, but I do want to just acknowledge that we all need to reflect on it, because I should be collaborating with nurses. I should be collaborating with the
Valid.
firefighters. I should be collaborating with all these different institutions, because we all share a village, right?
Right.
But I think specifically looking at the numbers, 1 in 10 children from a low income neighborhood will make it to a college campus. And
Wow.
I didn't say graduate, right?
Right.
So, like,
Right.
just getting there is a prize. And then 4 out of 10 students will actually graduate from college prep high schools. And so
Hmm.
that dropout rate, and this is a national number released by the U.S. White House. And so I just, those numbers are sobering for us. And I sometimes will line my kids up. I'll line up 10 kids on the first day of
Wow.
school. And I'll say, "Everyone raise your hand if you want to go to college." And, they're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to Yale." I said, "Oh, sorry. He's the only one that gets to go. You go sit down. You go sit down." And they're like, "Why? That's not fair." And then we have
Mm.
a conversation, right? So that's just
Right.
one example, just getting your foot in through the door and being able to access that piece of paper to graduate. But then also just my experience as a school administrator, Black boys coming to me every day at the same time. She won't let me do math. She won't let me do English. Every
Oh.
time she see me finishing my paper, she tell me I ran out of time. I mean, I would literally be able to time it. And so that's another example. Our Black and brown boys are and special education, they're being suspended at higher rates than their peers. It's
Wow.
got to a point where California had to sit down and have a conversation with Sacramento in the Bay Area and say, "Guys, we gotta fix it." And
Mm.
so, like, this year, our school district is saying we are not doing in-school suspension and we're not doing out-of-school suspension. We have to implement restorative justice. But it makes me sad that we had to wait until the numbers were staring us in the face to respond. But yeah, those are just two perfect examples.
Wow. I mean, I'm mind blown.
Mhm.
And I think this is one of those things. And I want to say this delicately. Sometimes we're just ignorant to. Uh, we don't want to think the worst. Let me say it that way. And then when you hear these numbers and these things are still happening today in this day and age, you think we've moved so far ahead, but we're still being constantly held back and pushed back. It's mind blowing. One, and I feel ignorant. I feel infuriated. I'm mad. And what? Just on that, before I even get there, like what suggestions can you say to maybe a parent or somebody who's listening who maybe feels like me? And what can they do, or what should they do to get more involved to make sure that these type of actions are ended? And I'll start with you, Tiffany.
I mentioned how earlier I need to connect with nurses, I need to connect with firefighters.
Hmm.
Guys, the school districts are best friends with your juvenile systems, right? So they actually are able to pass our children along to holding cells, right? Or to schools, charter schools within the counties that hold our kids. And your principals are paying upward 19,000 per year per kid just for
Wow.
that group to
Wow.
hold them over there, because God forbid they come to their school community. So my advice to all of our neighbors, and also our parents, know your school administrators on a friendly level, right? Let them know that
Hmm.
you are visible and that you're available and that you care about your child's learning. And I would just make sure that you're asking questions, but most importantly, know the law, know due process, know your
Hmm.
rights. You'd be surprised. Um, how many parents don't know, what, like you're saying, like we don't know. And I didn't know. Even my first 3 years
Right.
in teaching, I was like, we're breaking all these laws and y'all didn't tell me.
Right.
So I think taking parent classes and educating yourself on what is the law, in terms of immunizations. California is the first state to mandate that for children. And that's
Hmm.
going to either be coming up in January or July. Educate yourself. What are the waivers that are available that are maybe connected to religious affiliation that you can use, right? Instead of just
Hmm.
going up there and saying, we ain't coming to school no more, right? So
Right.
just empowering yourself. And it's okay to call your education attorneys. It's okay to
Hmm.
contact your parent liaison at the school district. They're your partners. But you of course want to start at the school level first and just be
Right.
visible. That's the best thing I can say.
And before I jump, because I'm going to switch to something that I want to ask Teyana first.
Hmm.
So, and this is just so all of this education, all of these things really kind of take me back to when my child was in school, and I just have to ask this: so, are you finding are parents still engaging with their kids? And I mean, and this may be a before the pandemic because it's probably different now, like you said with technology. But parent teacher conferences, because I would show up and show out every time. I didn't care whether my daughter's doing something good, bad, or whatever. But I felt as a parent and as a male of color that every student, every parent, every administrator, oh, they knew that was Mr. Cunningham. They knew who my child was, because if I showed up, it's going to be a problem. And I'm asking all the questions, and a lot of times my daughter would be like, "Dad," I'm like, "Shh, you." Shh, shh. So, do you find that kids, parents are still engaging in these parent teacher conferences? And I'll start with you, Tayana.
Um, I do find that they do participate. Just from um, my limited years of experience, I think the participation is not enough.
Mm.
Um, and then even, I mean, just yesterday, I had to do some impromptu parent teacher conferences because we like to accommodate our parents who can't attend a schedule. And I just noticed that in the conversation, um, the parents didn't. Um, Tiffany really hit it on the head when she said, the parents need to be informed. They need to educate themselves. And I began to realize in the course of the conversation, the parents didn't really seem to know how to support their child.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so I find myself not only supporting the student, but also
The
supporting the
parent.
parent in the degree that, this is what support from you might look like
Mm-hmm.
to help our
Mm-hmm.
student meet their goals. So, um, no, I don't think participation is sufficient. But even the participation that is happening, I think is uninformed
Mm.
in many ways.
Mm. I thank you, ladies, both for answering that, because I think it's imperative. And anybody that's here live, watching, or listening, or if you come back and you're coming across this part of the show, really get involved, because I think it is important. Probably more important than you realize. Um, Not only for the teachers, your kids, and really, like Tiffany said so eloquently, just educate yourself. Because just sitting here in these last 5 or 10 minutes of this portion, like I said, I'm thankful I don't have a kid in school anymore, but I've learned so much because it does branch out, and it's bigger than the school. It is the community. And our kids do pass through at times, or sometimes, like Tim said, we get pushed through at times of each point of the system, and we need to break that cycle. So next question really then won't, we're kind of talking about it now, but I want to dig in a little bit more. Tiffany, so behind the scenes, as an educator, you know, let's talk about some of the things that maybe you deal with or have experienced trying to these hurdles, like with the curriculum, politics, because I'm pretty sure there's politics that go on that we don't see behind the scenes. Your coworkers, I mean, 'cause sometimes your coworkers give you a problem. Like, can you start off and just talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yes, Lord. Uh, man, I said I was going to write a book, on my experiences because it's just important to reflect on, just all of our experiences and pay it forward. With that being said, I believe that, man, the politics, okay, I'm speaking as a Black woman. I'm going to start speaking as a Black woman as a school administrator.
Okay.
So a Black woman came to me. I'm blessed to have a lot of soldiers and superheroes around me
Hmm.
who have done this work. And I think that's important that you surround yourself with giants who can pour into you when you feel discouraged and when you feel lost. And with
Hmm.
that being said, I've been able to call these powerful women and just say, pour into me. And some of the women have sobered me up and told me straight up, until you get your doctorate, or until you get some letters behind your name, or until you really publish some work and research, they will always make you be a mammy. You will be in charge of
Mm.
the children as a Black woman. And
Mm.
and I'll be honest with you, I didn't get that knowledge until maybe like 6 or 7 years into education. And then I started to look around and I said, wow, they do keep promoting me to culture. They never offer me an instructional role.
Wow.
I'm a principal teacher, so I should be able to be an instructional leader. And so that's what actually brought me to Sacramento, because an
Wow.
instructional leadership role opened up for me here. And I said, I gotta leave and really get this open door while it's here. So that's one thing. I think currently I'm serving as the only Black teacher on my campus.
What?
And
Wow.
yeah, so I think that, and I haven't had a chance to really talk about that.
Hmm.
This is the first year since 2006 that I've been the only Black teacher on my campus. And so this year has kind of been different for me. But, so that in and of itself is a big deal.
Hmm.
Um, and just being able to coexist and share my culture with my team or with my students, especially with me being the only Black woman, especially every time I change my hair. They're like, what is going on with your hair? I thought it was
Mm.
longer, then it's shorter. And so there are some pressing issues here that we have to acknowledge as teachers of color, because we don't stay long in education.
Hmm.
And there's actually published research, doctoral research on Black women in higher education and Black women in leadership, and something with jeopardy, double jeopardy. There's research that shows that we'll get more assignments than our peers. They may
Mm.
put more students on our roster than our peers, and this is
Oh.
this is backed up by evidence, not just my experience. And so I just want to make sure I put that out there. And every time I see another Black educator, I tell them, "Thank you. Just persist. Representation matters. Our kids see you, and the students who aren't Black, they see you too.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this year, I continue to tell myself, God put me here for a reason. I'm standing
Mm.
strong. Because they need a Black teacher too. Everybody need one,
Yeah.
right? So
Whew.
yeah. Whew.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. I mean, and I'm with the comments. Deanna, LaShawn, Costa. I mean, this Melissa. What up, sis? This right here is absolutely mind blowing to someone to hear that even and again, you don't want to believe that this exists. But even in the educational system, you're still being set up to fail based on your color. And you're not being allowed to advance like your peers. And the one thing that I walk away with that I love what you said is, you know, they need to see a Black teacher too. And they need to see you and your worth as a person, uh, as a teacher. Because without you, or without you both, we've lost out on two fantastic people that can engage our children to want to do more. So I love what you said, Tiffany. So Tiana, I want to ask you, the same question. You know, what are some of the things that maybe you've experienced or challenged? Because I know you on the other side. Just getting in. You know. Is these are these some new challenges that to you that you're like, oh wow, really? Oh, is this is what it's going to be like? What has that been like for you?
I think the biggest challenge for me has been, well, not only coming in new, so the new person tends to be the less skilled,
Mm,
so you're still learning your job. But to have been trained to be a general education teacher
mm-hmm.
and still, and also being required to teach special ed students and not
Wow,
have the training,
wow.
because it puts them at a disadvantage. It doesn't only put me at a disadvantage,
Mm,
it puts them at a disadvantage. And so, and then that speaks to kind of, because I've never really met any teachers who haven't had that issue in all the states that I've met teachers.
right, right,
And
right.
so, and I just think that has been a big challenge for me, trying to support students that I didn't even have,
Right.
the skills um, to even begin to support them. Um, and which I understand how that translates into burnout. I've had,
Mm-hmm.
in the 3 years that I've been teaching, I have met seasoned teachers who are not teaching this school year anymore
Wow.
because they're tired of it. They you get burdened with an honorable task, but if I don't have the resources to do it, that is it's stressful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that has probably been the biggest challenge for me um, during this short time. Um, and then just the thing of being new,
Mm, mm-hmm.
it's different than being a sub. I mean, you're the teacher of record,
Right,
and there's
right.
a weight that goes with that. Um, so yeah, I think that the the challenge of newness and a lot of times of that naivete
Yeah, yeah,
and just the lack of skill,
yeah.
um, and just again, just it's awkward for me
Very, yeah,
to be in a position where I have to help this child, but I don't have the skill.
yeah.
That kind of like
Th-
used to
th-
gnaw at me.
That's got to be the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah,
It's like you can swim, but you've been swimming for weeks, and you're still out here in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight.
yeah.
There's no help, no anything. That's got to be the worst feeling. And my heart is breaking because I'm like, here it is. You have an individual that wants to be an educator, but it sounds like like and it goes back to your point earlier. There's no funds. So how are you supposed to help? A young man, a young boy or girl who is special needs,
Hmm.
and you're not even prepared to assist, and that is really has like the back my hair's on the back of my neck standing up because I feel lost just listening to you. So I can only imagine what
Yeah.
that is like on a daily basis.
Yeah, and then it also, because it's more than just academic. Because
Hmm.
I also wonder, what is the child thinking?
Mm.
Like, oh, so I can't get help because I'm different.
Wow.
I think
Wow.
about the residue of
Mm.
these type of situations, because that child is not going to forget
Right.
that I was in school and couldn't get help.
Wow, man.
So,
Whew. All right, we got deep here for a minute. I think right now is the perfect time. We're gonna take a pause for the calls, and I'm going to go ahead and run a quick break. Shout out to our sponsors who are supporting and advertising here on Two Mics Up. And we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, after the break. All right, and we're back out the break. Your man Dame DNYDC, host of the Two Mics Up podcast, back again. Part two, higher learning. If you missed the first half, go back and listen. If you get a chance. We really got deep, and really talking about, what our educators who have joined us tonight are really dealing with. We have Teyuna Darris, Tiana Darris, I'm sorry, uh, educator. She's she's fairly new to the game. Uh, Thank God she's here in the DMV area. We really appreciate you and love having you here in the DMV. We also have our sister Tiffany Harris. She too is an educator out in Cali, Sacramento, if I'm correct. Tiffany, thank you so much for taking time to join us and sharing your story. She's been an educator a little bit longer, a little bit more advanced, but sharing some great knowledge. And coming out, I just want to ask because Tiffany, you had mentioned something earlier, being history teaching everything, and we talked about that flag right there behind you. So I had that. So how do you feel about some states right now working to remove a sense of Black history in and around our school systems? I just got to ask.
It's just a moment of silence. It's
Mm,
just uh
okay, we
our
got Tiff.
to really
Okay, we got Tiffany freezing up on us. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump over to Tayana, and we'll work with Tiffany to bring Tiffany back as we've got her stuck at the moment. So, Tayana, same question for you. How do you feel as an educator? In some states they're working to remove Black history from the classroom.
I feel that at the beginning and the end of the day, the education system is the way it is because of the parents
they
and
outlaw this. It's
the
really sad.
voters.
Sorry.
And so I feel that if we continue to react to what a lot of these state legislatures are doing, um, a politician once said to me, and this was a school board member. They're no longer, and this has been a few years back. They told me something that I will never forget. They told me, "You see those people out there angry and hollering and screaming because we made some decisions that they don't like." They said, "Well, what's going to happen is they're going to continue to holler and scream, and they're going to come to our meetings and holler and scream some more,
Mm.
and I'm still going to get that policy enacted that I want."
Oh.
And when she said that to me, I just came to the realization. I said, "Okay, so as long as the parents and the voters, as long as we are not civically engaged, as long as we are not exercising our rights to vote, to petition, to do those things that actually make that paper trail and get things done
Mm-hmm.
and be persistent about it." um, I don't know. um, Honestly, I because it bothers me so much that we can't even in the 21st century just understand that Black history is American history.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and for some reason it seems that for our people it takes all those petitioning and organizing to get basic things done. But I feel like if that's what is needed to be done, then we need to do it, because otherwise we'll be just like that board member said, just those angry,
Mm-hmm.
irate parents, and you're just going to keep coming and screaming. You're not going to vote. You're not going to petition. You're not going to do anything to make me do my job.
Right.
So it really it burns really that
Mm.
um, Black history is being assaulted as it is, or should I say, American history is being assaulted as it is, because Black history is American history. It should be taught and treated and presented as such. Um, but yeah, I just feel like as long as the parents, the voters are not demanding that it be treated as such, I don't even know my feelings, because I usually don't even speak on it.
Right.
Um, but my feelings Yeah, I
Yeah.
just it
Yeah.
burns.
Yeah, and you said it though so eloquently though, and I mean I really had to pause for myself because you're right. Black history is American history. Facts. Period. Um, and yes, and thank you, LaShawn. It's not separated. And I think, in my opinion, you said it eloquently, and it does burn. It does piss you off, and I've said it here on our show in the past. We do have to think differently on how we're trying to trigger reactions. Um, Sometimes the hooting and the hollering is kind of what they expect. So sometimes your learned response, you have to retrain yourself to do something different to get a new response or to get someone to even pay attention. Because when you do something different, like, oh, they kind of wait, th- uh, they weren't expecting that. So sometimes we have to retrain ourselves. But that was a very great point. And our sister Tiffany Harris is back. So Tiffany, I'm sorry you got caught up in the matrix, sis. But come on back. And again, we're talking about Black history and that flag. So please continue.
Please forgive me, guys. Y'all see, I'm still at the school. Next time, I
Yeah,
should
hey,
have been
look,
at the house.
you
Um,
good, you good, you good.
but I was going to say, in terms of history, yes. Okay, so in 2017, the state superintendent of education in Arizona, Tom Horn, the state superintendent of education, outlawed ethnic studies all over the feeling that students in Arizona should not know about Mexico and the
Wow.
that are here, those roots. And that angered me so much, I made sure to get up out of there. Because you're not going to take my credential, my certification away for sharing my
Hmm.
experience as a person of color in this country. But most importantly, it's a violation to my values as a teacher, as an educator, as a community member,
Mm,
not to have these conversations with the students. So even
hmm.
now, I mentioned about me changing my hair.
Hmm.
Even my sixth graders, I say, I'm going to teach you about protective hairstyles so that when you get to college, you don't have to have that uncomfortableness about asking your roommate about her changing her hair. You're not my students. You're not going to be those people. And so we owe it to our students to educate them, because if we don't teach them, we will be sweeping things underneath the carpet. And, just going back to this flag, we really would be celebrating on July 2nd and not July
Mm.
4th for our independence, had we kept that little phrase in there about being honest and not wanting slavery, not wanting to, we are holding the king accountable for slavery, right? But the people who were drafting it actually held on to slaves, right? George Washington taking the teeth out of the slaves just to put it into his dentures. And so I cannot sit here and talk about the Declaration of Independence without acknowledging race theory. And it's in
Agreed.
the curriculum. California does a great job with Common Core, especially with making sure they keep it real about Native Americans. So,
Hmm.
so I would say to future educators and parents, make sure that there's good education policy wherever you are.
Yeah.
And I'm really
Yeah.
sad that Greg Abbott is taking the steps that he's taking with education, because honey, you used to be Mexico.
Okay. Okay. Facts. And I will go back. And I just want to throw it because, um, so I want to acknowledge, another sister, Melissa Mallory, who's an educator, and you will be seeing her later on this season here on Two Mics Up. She's the newest member of the family. She'll be rocking with me on some episodes. She's here in the DMV area, and her point is very well said. The problem is you have the offending party trying to control the narrative of this country's history. And I'm going to leave it at that because there's really nothing else to say but put a period on that and an exclamation point, followed by some more periods because that's just all facts every day. And we're just going to, you know, well said, sis. Thank you for dropping that fact. Um, I'm going to transition because we're talking about education and we're talking about we briefly touched about the pandemic. Um, but now that we've moved into this technology, and I know you said, Teyana, that it feels like you're even more connected, with the parents, and you have so much that you already have to do when you're wearing all of these different hats. Well, with this now, because and this is just me as an outsider, as a parent, and I said this to my wife when this whole thing broke out. I said, look, 2025 will probably be the first year that we ever really get to any type of normalcy. And here it is, we are now going on 2 years. And a lot of people like Tiffany with her mouth open, she like looking like, really? You 2020? Right now, and I'm dead serious. Because part of the problem is this for me is capitalism over lives, right? And just talking about school, we got our kids back at they're on the front line now. And I just want to know, in both of you guys' opinion, how has the pandemic affected, your work, but more so, what do you feel the future impact will be, as we continue forward down this rabbit hole per se? And I'll start with you, Teyana.
The pandemic affected me. Well, let's just say in 2019, that was my first year as a teacher. And I never imagined that my first year would be interrupted by a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, because for the most part, the kids were going to school like we normally do. And then social distancing. Oh, now I have to teach 7-year-olds because at the time I had first grade and I stayed with them for second grade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had to teach little children how to use Microsoft Teams
Oh, oh,
so that we
wow.
could
Wow.
have our teacher because we like it's similar to Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh my God. And I never saw that coming, and so that the impact that had on me was that you just have to adapt. You just
Mm,
have to, the goal has already been defined. And I just have to make the adaptations that I need to make to achieve that goal. It hurts sometimes it angers, sometimes it's
wow.
exhausting, but the goal is I got to educate these kids. And so um yeah, so it really taught me a big hard lesson in just enduring
Mm.
and just staying with the task and just don't give up. And I know that sounds probably like butterfly words, but literally that's what
No,
that was, and it was just so unexpected.
it sounds like too though. Part of it is to help you, and no pun because mental health is serious, but to help you keep your mental health as well. Because that is an added pressure. Because then too, like you said, you're dealing with fourth graders. I can only imagine what it's like. Because I mean, I have to ask, how much teaching you really doing? Like, hey, keep your mask on. Hey, don't touch. Wipe your hand. I mean, so that's just like a whole nother layer of stuff that we didn't even talk about teaching. We talking about a pandemic here. So like
Mhm.
that's got like I'm sitting here like I want to pull the little hair that I do have out just thinking about it. So what is that like?
um well, that part is stressful. I have to tell the kids every day, put your mask back on, no touching, no touching, let him go, let her go, like it doesn't stop. um but at the same time it does um, reinforce the idea of, I guess we could say, balance
Mm,
of, and like you said, mental health,
mm-hmm,
and just making sure that this pandemic has made me be more attentive to my needs,
mm-hmm,
even
mm-hmm,
as I'm addressing other people's needs. It's
mm,
just made me think more, like just be more cognizant of my well-being. It
mm-hmm,
really has. And honestly, it because it got to a point where I didn't even realize I was stressed. And this was probably around April of um 2019 after we were all sent home. And I'm just like, okay, like because you got the fear of just what is this pandemic going to be like, and I'm thinking like, is this like the Black Death, like what is
right,
this
right,
going
right,
to be
right.
like? And so just all of those other things, it really just made me stop and think like, okay, I'm going to have to, I'm going to continue to teach. I'm going to continue to do X, Y, and Z. In order to do these things, I have to function. And
Mm-hmm.
so that means I need to make sure, however, so often, that I'm doing what I need to take care of me mentally, physically,
I
emotionally,
know that's right.
in every way. So, yeah, so that's been how it's really impacted me. And then just moving forward, I think just um, preparedness. I don't know if you can be too prepared, but I think preparedness starts with a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And just because we all could have just cried and just hid in the closet and just said, oh, the pandemic and oh, whatever else. But I mean, we're here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we're
Mm-hmm.
still, we have adapted.
Yeah.
This interview could have been in person if it wasn't for
Right.
the
Right.
pandemic. So I think that's I think it's a great lesson in just adapting to for whatever the changing circumstance is to reach that goal.
Well said. So I'm going to transition to Tiffany as well. You know, with the pandemic, you know, how has that, affected you in your classroom model? And really, where do you see or where do you feel the future impact may be
Hmm.
as we come out of the pandemic?
Hmm. Well, I've been back in the classroom since November
Mm.
of last year. So our school was the first and only to come back last year. And my school director, she really believed that we could be an example if we were to step up and really try to be brave and show people what we could do. So we came back and we had plexiglasses on every
Mm.
desk, guys. I
Mm.
mean, my principal probably spent about $60,000 just on plexiglasses for every
Wow.
class.
Wow.
Then in the cafeteria, plexiglass in between each seat, right? So I mean, so that classrooms are looking
Hmm.
we're looking different
Right.
because we had the social distancing. You have cameras in the classroom now because
Mm.
we are our school started off with hybrid, so I
Hmm.
would be teaching half of the students in the class and half on Zoom at the
Wow.
same time.
Wow.
Yes, so I feel
Wow.
like I can really turn water into wine now. All right. I really like. Sometimes I have to remind the kids this year, "Hey, y'all, I'm not a magician. I know I did it last year, but I'm not doing it this year." But so cameras in the classroom. Our principal invested in a lot of new technology. So now we have graphic design tables in addition to our desks, and we
Hmm.
have additional monitors in our classrooms, just because
Okay.
she wants us to feel supported, so we can actually do the work. No parents on campus, so that was a strange adjustment.
Hmm.
Telling people they couldn't come in and walk their kid to class or have a parent meeting.
Wow.
Um, our staff meetings went to online, of course, even though we will be on campus. So, but I think that to answer your second question, Ms. Darris did a great job. I'm so glad you brought up the Black Plague, because my seventh graders, that is one of their units of study, and they have to ask themselves, in what ways do you think the people during medieval times in Europe, how their lives were impacted by this
Mm.
pandemic, right? And
Hmm.
and then they were like, well, Ms. Harris, we're in a pandemic too, and we're able to compare the numbers, but they're able to be honest and say, like, school's not the same anymore. And my principal felt pressure for everyone to be on site, 100% on site this year. So we did not do hybrid. But then when a child may get sick or have symptoms or need quarantine, then they can do online Zoom,
Online.
or we'll
Hmm.
record it for them. So
Hmm.
we're just trying to keep up with the times. And I just want to encourage anybody that is a teacher, or just anybody in general that is becoming discouraged, just know, from the Black Death, democratic thought
Mm.
rise. We grew from that experience. People start thinking for themselves, saying, well,
Right.
what if? And so I think it's great that we're having meaningful conversation about it, because our virtual spaces are growing for children. Our
Yeah.
students now all have a laptop of their own to take home.
Yeah.
And then even if kids don't have internet, we give them hotspots. And so we're
Hmm.
showing them that getting an online degree is not bad. There's
No.
integrity in that, and there's a way. So we're just trying to grow and just push forward. But I do want to acknowledge, in terms of students with disabilities, we
Hmm.
have a responsibility to protect all of our students on campus, right? Because when their parents drop them off, they're entrusting us. So I sometimes will say they're my children during the day, right?
Hmm.
And with that being said, guys, when it came up to the vaccinations, I don't even know how I feel about the vaccine. People have been asking me, what do you feel? How do you feel? I don't know. But what I do know is I signed up to be a champion for children, and I'll do whatever it takes to get it
Mm.
done. And I know there are kids with different medical issues. I mean, falling under the umbrella of special ed doesn't just mean learning. It
Right.
means my body has a physical condition that negatively impacts my learning. And so
Hmm.
that could be diabetes, that could be anything. And so I want to make sure that I'm being responsible in my decision making. So I know this is a hard one for a lot of people to consider. California is not making us take it as educators, but we do have to take tests to prove that we're negative every 2 weeks.
And
So
that, so first of all, I want to applaud you because you said some things in there that I really love, and I think a lot of people need to hear. You know, you take ownership, and you really motivated me because you think outside the box. And a lot of what you said, you know, a lot of our kids. And look, I'll be the first to say everybody's not meant to go to college, and that may not be their calling. But to think outside the box, like you say, hey, you know, we're doing this new virtual technology. You know, here's a skill and a job that you can do. That a lot of people I know who do very well did not go to college, but are certified online. Uh, to do a lot of different things without a college degree. We have skills and trades that we still need people who are gifted in creating and designing things. So we're talking about higher learning tonight, but I want to say also that higher learning does not mean you have to go to college. I don't want people to feel that this is something that we're just signaling, you know, you have to. There, I hear you talk, Tiffany. There's so many other things that when you look outside the box that people can do to be successful, and it does still take higher learning and higher skill to do it, just not through books. So I love when you say that. But you also brought up another point about vaccine mandates. And I know, you know, like you said, California does not require you. Now I'm over here on the East Coast, and Teyana is too. And Teyana, I don't want you to feel like you have to get into specifics. Because I know here in the DMV area, like in Virginia, like they're going buck wild, forcing people. And, you know, there's fallout. There's probably gonna be fallout everywhere, but they getting buck wild with the mandates. And again, I agree with you, Tiffany. I think it's a personal choice. However, I am going to say that just from my opinion, because I was against the vaccine at first, but I think as a human being, if it gives me a fighting chance, one not to look, I don't want to die, because last I checked, you know, wearing the mask, you don't die from wearing the mask. Yeah, there's health risks that go with it, but dying wasn't one of them last time I checked. So if I won't pass away from it, give me the shot, because I put worse things in my body as a young man coming up than a vaccine. So and then as a person that's in the community as an educator and first responders and things like that, I think you may want to also, because you're coming in contact with a lot of our community, and I think it would just be wise, because if you could be a what do they call, you could be you could transfer, you may not get it, but you can be one to pass it on to someone else, so why not get it?
and I
uh,
would not be able to live with myself if I infected anybody on my team or any of my students.
so that was the last reason why, and the most important reason why I go out I go to work, and I would be distraught if I brought this back home to my wife or my daughter and they passed away from it, and I was the reason. So, Tayan, I just want to give you opportunity that if you want to speak, because I know you're in this beltway of the world. I don't know if it's as crazy where you are as where it is down here, but and again, you don't have to. You know, I want to make sure everybody's safe in what they're doing in their careers. But do you have a thought or an opinion about these vaccine mandates?
I think, you know, how can I put it? I think the vaccinations are, I think it's a wise step to take.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I find myself pondering, why is it so politicized?
Right.
Because America has mandated, children, from my understanding, children often can't go to school unless they have certain inoculations
Right.
by a certain age.
Right.
You can't work in a daycare or in a kitchen without certain inoculations, to my understanding,
Mm-hmm.
uh, at least where I'm from. And so it seems, um, I don't know, the political part, the fighting and the controversy about the vaccine. I think it's kind of much, but I do think that getting the vaccine, I mean, I don't have an issue with it. I did get it. I I just want to make sure that I'm okay. I just feel like, and I understand a lot of the issues with, oh, it's a new vaccination, they rushed it. You know, science is science is what pushes progress in technology. It once upon a time we didn't go to space. Now we go to space. Once upon a time, we didn't have smartphones. We only had telephones. I just feel like I get it, people's concerns about what this um, vaccine can do to people, but what more can be done to you if you don't have it? I guess that's the other way to look at it. So for me
Yeah.
personally, and my conscience, when I considered all of these things that are being said, it was for my conscience, it was, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take it. Um, I'm gonna socially distance, I'm gonna mask up, and I mean, I don't have any political enemies for anyone who does or doesn't.
Right, right,
but
right.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
who are you?
for me, that's what I did.
Oh, I get it. And go ahead, Tiffany.
And I was going to mention too, I think, so I don't just teach history. I teach like individuals in their societies. And I think that's it's important to acknowledge like how we answer the question too, because Miss Miss Darris and I, we're answering from a population
Right,
viewpoint, right? Like we
right,
are community members hovering over our children and protecting this space. And when I think about populations and census and all this data, like you have to be able to account for all of these people. Some of these campuses have over 2,000 students on their campus. And
mm,
so, of course, I can say, well, for me, I don't want, right? But I have to think about this as a global citizen. I am a member of a bigger community. And so maybe I don't get the vaccination. Maybe there are other ways in which I can be a positive contributor to my village. But like just saying you all together just not going to wear your mask, you're not going to get vaccinated, you're not going to socially distance. How is that supporting the learning of children,
right,
right? So
mm,
if we can just take a more holistic approach to that question, I think it would really help us.
right. Well, I want to go back to Deanna. People still get sick with it, and I agree. But I think the bigger question now that we've kind of moved into another phase of the pandemic is how many people are passing now. Because I think early on, I think it was a death sentence in a way because we didn't have a vaccine. And again, I was on the anti-vax side for a minute, and I'm just going to be honest, blatant honest. But I think you have to start measuring, you know, the safety and is it getting sick now versus dying? And I'd rather be safe enough to be sick and live and still be here versus not have an opportunity at all. Stephen Mallory, as educators explain the purpose of mRNA in the human body, then they should understand the trepidation. Hey, I'm not a doctor and I'm not going to get into all that, but yes, I totally understand, Stephen. You're 100% right. Trepidation all day long, and even to go further, trepidation just as a culture and society of people of color of what has happened to us. That's an even bigger trepidation and fear, and that was mine. Period. Point blank in the beginning. Because look, I don't want to be Tuskegee all over again, and all of those other things. The sister. I mean, her name just.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
Yeah, I'm just keeping it real. Like the oh man, the lady who geez, the sister. Damn, Henrietta Lacks. Where they're getting all of they took her DNA and all of these vaccines basically in the world were stolen from a black woman who did not give permission to be tested on. And this all of these other things. So a lot of this was my trepidation and my fear. But we're going to push through this, and that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother topic that Stephen just gave me a light go off in my head. We'll circle back to this conversation. But as we come to a close, I just have to ask you, ladies, one last question. And I'll start with Tiffany. And just in your humble opinion, can this whole disjointed education system, from the curriculum to the politics, to the impact on you as teachers and educators and our kids, can this be repaired moving forward? Like, is there a chance for us to finally get everyone on board and all parts in play so that we can have a more even playing field for all of our students moving forward?
I have hope. There were times where I didn't. I've taught in schools where the ceiling was leaking, the hallway
Mm,
smelled like urine. There was a custodian that would only come once a week. So I've
wow.
seen highs and I've seen lows. And I have faith in our education system because I see people like myself and Miss Darris. And I also see community members and parents like yourself, Dane, that are intentional and really want to, they're curious, they want to help, they see the progress that we're making, or they see the disparities and they want to help. So um I believe that we just have to make sure that we're creative and we stay open and just don't give up on growth. We should be committed to, teachers have to stay committed to professional development. Go get your master's, go get another one. Then think about publishing some research. There's nothing wrong with getting more credentials, right? Or even just learning more, picking up more credentials in terms of other disciplines and different content areas. But
Mm,
just having a relentless commitment to closing the achievement gap. And some schools have done it. There are schools that are blue ribbon schools recognized by the U.S. White House that are in the hood. It can be done, but it's up to us to go and bridge and have conversations and collaborate with other educators like we're doing tonight. It just makes us all better. So there is hope. But I do want to point out, the Bill of Rights, we have to acknowledge that education is left up to the states to decide on.
mm,
And it will be that way, right? And so um, I just want to encourage people again, pay attention to elections. If you are a teacher, you should be reading a newspaper. You should be glued to the TV. Email your representatives. Get in their behinds. Go to the school site, council meetings on your campus, and go to the school board meetings. Make sure everybody see your black face. Make sure everybody see that you care about policy, because that's really what it boils down to, is policy.
mm,
Because
mm.
as soon as Gavin Newsom, when he wasn't recalled, he came and hit back with a whole
Yep.
bunch of education initiatives, a
Yep.
whole bunch of initiatives. So, and I'm paying close attention to that, because if it's not done right, if he doesn't follow through, then I'll be seeing him at the polls.
Mm. Well said, boy. Whoo. That's what blast from the past right here on this show. Yeah, because Tiffany hit that on the head. So, Teyana, same for you as we close out. You know, what's your opinions on that?
I think the best way to improve our system is through reform.
Mm,
And the system we currently use was built 200 something years ago. There was no electricity. It was a whole other world. And we were slaves.
mm-hmm,
And so when you were working with an institution that was never built for us anyway, I think
preach.
the best way to improve that institution is to reform it. You gut it out at its foundation, and then we start over.
Mm,
This America that we have is not the America of when the public school system began.
mm,
And so, because I run this through my mind. Like I work with diversity and equity within my school community, and I run these things through my mind. The things that I'm trying to do for these folks who have protected status,
mm-hmm,
they wouldn't have to have protected status if the institution was just built for them.
mm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's as we keep going the way that we've been going, it's going to be hit or miss for them, and it's already hit or miss for many of us who are not even in a protected class.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to gut it out and start all over again. And honestly, that's my hope. Like
Mm.
I hope that we get to the point where it's just like, okay, we're gonna have to the founding fathers, they call them. That's what they did.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So that's how I
Look,
look at it.
all I'm gonna say is I'm with the audience. I'm with everybody. That's why, like, we just, man. This is why I love doing this, man. We had some gems tonight and some points that really were shared and discussed by two fascinating and awesome guests and educators who are out here on the front lines with our kids each and every day. And I have to say thank you both to Teyuna, Darris, and Tiffany Harris, T&T, for spending time tonight and sharing this, so powerful and moving information. And now I'm going to look to continue expanding on this conversation. And ladies, if I could, I'd like to reach out to you again to have you both come back because I really um, appreciate it. Yes, thank you, Coach. I do. But it was an amazing show. We could probably go on forever, but I'm not going to hold everybody. But you two ladies, thank you so much. And before we actually close out, I want to give each of you an opportunity. If you want to share some information about yourself, if you want to share any information on how any of our audience or listeners may want to follow or get, because you both are two amazing individuals. Because I left out some things. Because she's a writer. Tiffany is a podcast co-host and all, and she's an educator and all the other things. So whatever you ladies want to share, I want to give you a few minutes to share, and I'm going to start with Teyuna first. So Teyuna, please share whatever information you'd like to share with our audience before we go.
All right. Well, it's been great being here, and I just want to thank you, sir, for having me on. And Tiffany, you have given me a lot of gems, and I thank you for that. Um, I am, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Darris. Um, and I'm working on this project called Good Poetry. When I'm not teaching, I'm doing poetry.
All right
And
now.
I have this goal to kind of like reintroduce a lot of the poetry from the past, even poetry of today. I want to reintroduce it through digital media to kind of reach the new generations,
Okay.
and just to kind of so we don't lose the gems of poetry,
Mm-hmm.
specifically, and then just literature at large. So Good Poetry is my project, goodpoetry.org, and you can feel free to connect and read and enjoy.
All right now. I mean, look here. Y'all heard it here first. Goodpoetry.org. Write it down, jot it down. Go ahead and follow this sister. We look forward to having her return back here on Two Mics Up because we're going to continue this conversation. Please go out and support, our educators and what they're doing. And definitely not last and not least, our sister Tiffany Harris. She too has a full resume and a full plate. And I'm gonna let her spill, and y'all make sure y'all follow her and her co-host and everything that they doing with they joint. Tiffany, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you so much for having me, Dave. I'm humbled. First of all, what you guys are doing, you're giving a voice to our community, and you're so progressive in your thought. And I just want to thank you for that. And there's just so much education that you guys offer on your podcast. Ms. Darris, you know I'm about to be contacting you. I want to collaborate with you, and I was just thinking um, for your poetry planning master classes, just release noms doing the hip hop storytelling class, and just how powerful it is when we can put our minds together and support each other. So I will be collaborating with your sis, and just anything you need. I always tell future teachers, or teachers who are growing, if you need a letter of recommendation, if you need a anything you need, we're going to support each other. Um, so I want to
Awesome.
say that.
Awesome.
But a little bit about me really quickly. You guys can follow me. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I would love to collaborate with you guys and connect professionally. Tiffany Harris, and you can type in Sacramento, and you'll see me pop up there. Otherwise, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I do have a podcast with my homegirl. It's called The Potential Candidate. And that's basically about life after divorce, taking accountability, and really mending relationships and putting your life back together piece by piece and connecting the dots. And so we just have a lot of conversations with ourselves and our listeners about looking in the mirror. But in addition to that, I own an online boutique, queenlatiffany.com, specializing in sizes 0 through 24. So I just thank you guys for all your support, and I just want to learn from you guys and collaborate. So thanks again.
Wow. Yeah, y'all heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, we got two of the most amazing women educators out here doing big things in our community. And this follow and support, like we always do here, Two Mics Up. We're big on, educating, empower, and positively impacting our community. I want to thank all of you who've taken time out of your busy schedules to sit here, chop it up with myself, Teyuna, Tiffany. It's been a blast. It's been a ball. Before we go though, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down at the bottom. Go ahead and hit that bell so you can be notified by all the newest content coming out from Two Mics Up. And while we're here, the holidays are around the corner. If anybody that's in the audience listening, watching, or if you have a friend or family member that is looking, or maybe has an online store, wants to sell, we're going to do 12 days of Christmas right here on Two Mics Up, live on Thursday nights, looking for 24 vendors. If you really about your business and you want to have an opportunity to promote and sell for the holidays, we're going to open up our platform and allow you, yep, Tiffany, yep, talking to you. If you want to jump on here, send us an email. You can go online, www.2micsup.com/contact. Hit the little contact button. Send us an email in the subject line, 12 days of Christmas, and we'll work on getting you on the show, let you sell some product, and let's do it up how we do here on Two Mics Up. And just so while we sitting here talking about it, take a look. All right. So, if you ain't get the message, 24 vendors, want to spread it out over starting in November. We opened up registration yesterday. Get your registration in by November 1st. We're going to do some test runs and things like that before we go live. Like I said, share the news. Holiday spirit. We trying to get amped up, get things ready here for Christmas. And support some of our small businesses in and around our great country. With that said, as we close out, it's your man Dame D, Two Mics Up. Follow us online again, www.2micsup.com. You can follow us on social media, IG, Facebook, and Twitter at Two Mics Up. And like we always do at this time, stay safe, stay blessed. Mics out.